Love it.
I heard about JP before I ever met him, and I remember when I finally met you, it was after my car accident. I literally had just got home from the hospital. I get out of the vehicle, I'm all beat up, like I have this big broken arm, I can barely walk, and you appear like a little angel, and you're like, I heard, is everything okay, and is there anything I can do for you? And I was like looking at you and looking at me and thinking, where the heck did this angel come from? Then you also offered to take me out driving after my accident because I was petrified on the road.
Right.
So if you've heard about JP, he's even better than you could imagine. I'm sitting with JP Middleton, and today we're going to talk about life on wheels, and life after tragedy.
Yeah.
JP, tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, you bet. So I'm 38 years old, father of two, married to a wonderful wife. Back in March of 2018, I was skiing at Mount Norquay, and was a little bit too aggressive, crossing over a cat track, and hit a lip that I didn't anticipate, and shot my skis in front of me, and I landed on my bum. When I came to a stop, I couldn't feel below my waist, and I worked as an EMT and a firefighter, so I knew right away that I'd done something pretty significant to my body. 2 minutes on the hill before ski patrol came felt like an eternity. I laid there and thinking, I can't move, what am I going to do? My life flashed before my eyes. When I was laying there, a 7-year-old girl came up to me and she took off her jacket and put it under my head and said, this is for you to keep you comfortable. And that was kind of the start of seeing the world in a whole new light. The ability of others to help you when you're desperately in need, and to think that a 7-year-old girl would take off her jacket in -10 weather and put it under my head, it was incredible.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you knew immediately that, did you know it was a spinal cord injury as soon as it happened?
It took me about a minute to realize it. You're sitting there and my bum was numb, my legs were numb, I couldn't move. It's such a shock on the system. It took me a good 60 seconds to realize that I'd probably done damage to my spinal cord. And when I kind of twisted a little bit, I could feel the burst in my back, that fracture at T12 that repulsed into the spinal cord. And what that means is that the fracture burst and went, behind my body almost into the spinal cord. So it was quite painful, and certainly a tough situation. And
it was like a lazy ski day. Like it wasn't a massive day out.
No, it wasn't. I was on a fire call that morning, and I thought, well, I was on the way up to Norquay, and the pager went off for fire call, and instead of skiing, I turned around, drove back down the hill, actually made it on one of the second trucks, remarkably, and went on the fire call and said, okay, here's the day, and I decided to go back up to the hill, and I just had to blow off some steam after the call and went a little bit too hard. Yeah.
And so before the accident, you're an avid mountain person.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was life like before?
Well, my body could take me anywhere. I took for granted what I could do. I had physical stamina, I had strength, I had the will and the desire to explore in the mountains and ski and hike and stay in alpine cabins and all that fun stuff that we do here in the Bow Valley. And to have that taken away was a shock. It was incredibly difficult. I laid there in the hospital looking back. I could actually see the mountains from my hospital bed, and it was a reminder of what life was like up until that moment. And after you have a spinal cord injury, it's not like a broken leg or a broken arm. It's permanent. It's not going to heal. And a lot of people with spinal cord injuries, they celebrate the anniversary of their injury. I'm coming up to the 3-year mark now on March the 9th, and I know that day quite well. It's ingrained in my mind. It's tough even thinking about it. Yeah.
I mean, it's wild from the outside because I didn't know you before, but you are so jovial and you're always wanting to help me.
Right.
Like I remember I had a new fridge and you're like, well, I wish I could help you.
Absolutely.
But you're so animated and enthusiastic, and where does that come from?
I think it's just built into me. It's a desire to help other people. Working as an EMT and a firefighter, my life was to help. And whether that was on the job or off the job, it's still ingrained into me that I need to help people when they're in need. Just the other day we saw a woman across the street there that needed to get stuck with her van there, and we kind of talked about it briefly, and I sent you across the road to help because I can't do it anymore. I can't go behind that van and push it out like I used to. Old me would have ran across the road right away and helped this poor woman out, but new me has to say, I'm limited in what I can do. And that's tough. Every time you see a situation where you used to be able to help and you can't, it's tough.
Where do you put that energy now? That wanting to help?
I think I just put it into my day-to-day life to keep me going.
Mm-hmm.
Every day is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to take things, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. It's the only way that I can kind of persevere. I'm dealing with really bad nerve pain after the injury. I lose sensation right around my waist, and right at that mark is where I've got this horrible nerve pain. It's a burning, tearing sensation, and it drains me every day. I take a lot of medication to try to get me through the day, and I resisted that at first. In the hospital, they said, okay, we're going to put you on this, 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 and this, and I said, no, I'm going to use my energy to try to get over this nerve pain and get over the fatigue and get over the spinal pain because I had massive surgery. So I try to put it into my healing every day if I can.
And so we were talking earlier about the use of medication, and you said you're starting to take less and less.
Right.
But
right.
How are you managing that pain then?
I was taking methadone I still am taking methadone for helping with the nerve pain. And the more methadone I was taking, the more fatigue that I was experiencing. So, I would take the medication at night, and the next day I could close my eyes at any moment of the day and just fall asleep. And I said, well, there's got to be a balance between, quality of life and being able to do things during the day and having that energy to get through it, and balancing that against the nerve pain. So it's a give or take relationship where, I've tapered back a little bit on that methadone in order to have more energy and more stamina, but I'm dealing with more nerve pain now. So as time goes on, the pain hasn't subsided, but in my mind, I'm just handling it a little bit better.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's your new norm.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I get up in the morning and I know that if I don't take my Lyrica, which is another medication that I take, if I don't take that within the first hour of the day there, I'm going to be in pretty significant nerve pain. So I try to get on top of things early in the day, get on top of the pain early on. By midday, I'm typically pretty drained.
Okay.
And I need to get horizontal. I need to lay down in bed just to stretch myself out. I'm sitting here in a chair every waking minute that I'm up, basically.
Oof.
So to sit all day long and not stand, I've learned the next position is the best position.
Mm.
And to not be able to accomplish that by standing up, it's tough. So the muscles, they shorten up in there, and the tendons and ligaments and everything, and it gets really tight through my waist, and yeah.
And what about your massive arms?
Yeah.
Were you always massive like this?
In high school I worked out a lot and I had a lot of mass to me.
Okay.
And when I moved out here, I got back into cross-country cycling.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I lost a lot of that mass. I was 150 pounds
Whoa.
before my injury. I'm probably 175 right now. So it's that constant
Whoa.
lifting yourself up every moment of the day, right? If I need to transfer into bed, I'm lifting myself up and throwing myself around. So it's all of those triceps and it's chest muscles and transferring onto the toilet, transferring into bed, transferring into my e-bike, transferring onto my hand cycle, transferring down to the ground so I can play with the kids, transferring down to the ground so I can fix a leaky dishwasher that I had this morning, right? Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And what was the most helpful thing in the beginning when you were getting used to your new life?
I think maintaining strong social connections and deep family ties was a huge help.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a village to try to conquer this injury, right? And whether it was my family, my friends, colleagues, random people in Banff that I'd never met before that approached me to help out. I think that was a huge help for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is it like going into town on a wheelchair? Like, what is it like on your end?
Well, when I first came out of the hospital, every little crack, every little dip was an obstacle that I wasn't sure how to navigate. It takes some getting used to. It took a good 6 months of rolling around this town to understand how to navigate the curbs. And, sometimes a transition will come down to a sewer grate, and I've got these tiny little wheels on the front there that fit right in the sewer grate.
Oh.
So if you're not careful and you plant those wheels first, you're coming right over the chair. So I've done that multiple times where I'm going too fast and I forget to lift my front casters off the ground, and they get embedded in a dip or a crack in the road there, and out I come.
Oh my God, and then you have to climb up.
Well, yeah, I've got to transfer back into the chair, and it happened to me actually behind the fire hall about 2 weeks ago. I hit a little piece of ice and came out of the chair, and unfortunately it was so icy that when I tried to transfer back into the chair, my legs just slipped out and I couldn't get the force to lift myself up. So there I am sitting there in the middle of the alley, in a puddle of slush, and one of the firefighters, Kent Patterson, who was driving by, he saw me there and he pulls right up and he braced my feet and braced the chair for me so I could get back in. And another kind soul kind of came up as well, and she helped me out there too. So, it takes, as I said, it takes a community or a village to conquer this.
And what that must be like as someone who was driving to fires.
Oh yeah.
Now to be the one that's assisted. I mean, we don't help you much, but
No.
What is that like? That role switch?
It's been a challenge to redefine where I kind of stand, and I should say stand, where I sit in society. To go from the one that's always helping to the one that needs so much help. It's a difficult transition.
I mean, needs so much help, JP.
Well, it's you'd be amazed. I'm in constant contact with my doctor.
Yeah.
He's always there. My friends are calling me multiple times a week to to check up on me. My wife and my kids support me so much. There's a lot of moments where you can become down, just thinking about your former life and what you could accomplish. And the trick to moving forward is to think about the can-dos and not the can't-dos. There's a lot of can-dos, a lot of things I can still do. There's a lot of things I can't do. If you go down that can't-do route, you're going to be in a deep dark hole pretty quickly. I skirted the edge of that hole in the hospital when I was first injured. I said I can either persevere and get over this, or I can slide down into depression and let that rule my life until I get out of that hole. And if you go far enough down that hole, you never know what you're going to do. So there was thoughts there in the hospital, bad thoughts of how I was going to take care of myself if I couldn't conquer the injury. And they still linger to this day 3 years later. And again, I go back to the can-do attitude, what I can do to motivate myself and focus on fun activities that I can do to avoid the negative stuff in my life. Sit skiing, hand cycling, using my e-bike on the mountain bike trails. Just even spending time with the kids, of course, is a huge help. You'll come home from a day and your boy comes home and he's made you a beautiful card and he's spelled daddy on it, and it's heartwarming to see the progress that my kids have made in the past few years, and they really lift my spirits.
Yeah, there's this moment that you shared shortly after the accident. You said you were sitting there and you were looking out the window and you're like, do I want to continue down this path of life? And then your little boy came running in the room and sat on your lap and you were like, no, I'm in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those moments when you're sitting there in the hospital on your own and your kids come in and they say daddy and they just jump right on you, it's so uplifting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recommend to anybody who doesn't have a family, consider it. 90% of the time it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that other 10% of the time it is not worth it.
Little 2-year-olds there, they're terrible 2s and 3-nagers, and they've got their own will and opinions, and it can be tough at times.
Yeah. It is. It's the greatest thing to watch your kid grow up and
It
they
is.
have all these passions. And you think about your children and the impact you and this experience of a dad in a chair is having on their lives.
Right.
You know, how do you think their lives have changed or changed their personalities?
They become my little helpers. You know, when I'm out with Evan, he knows that he's going to open up a door in a store for me and hold it for Daddy. You know, it's incredible. It's incredible what they can do for you at such a young age. He was doing that at 3.5 years old. You know.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's beautiful. And sometimes, I mean, I don't believe that things happen for a reason, but I think that when trauma and an accident occurs, the people around us have to step up in such a way that it changes the trajectory of their lives.
it does.
Right? And is Evan going to then become a doctor to work on spinal cord injuries?
Right.
Like, where will the trajectory of their lives go because they've got this beautiful dad that has had this experience?
I think it makes them more compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going through life in a slightly different trajectory, as you said. They know that they need to be little helpers for Daddy, and as they get older, I know that they'll carry me upstairs one day, you know? Like two strong little boys. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll love it. And they'll be so grateful that they get to do it.
They will, for sure. You know, I had a sit-ski instructor named George Shelton, and he came from the UK, and his dad is a quadriplegic, and you know, his life now is to teach people like me how to sit ski. So you can see the impact of his father's injury on him. He's gone into a role of helping people, and what an amazing guy to dedicate his life to teaching people with spinal cord injuries or traumatic brain injuries or amputations, you know, how to get back on the mountain. It's an incredible thing.
That is incredible.
It is.
What about you? How has it changed your purpose in life?
That's a tough question to answer.
You might not be able to answer it yet.
Yeah, you know, I think it's certainly maybe more compassionate. It opens your eyes to the world and the way that it is and the way that we interact with it. You know, sitting in a wheelchair, we notice things that just won't work for us, right? We notice that there's a lot of stairs and steps downtown Banff that I can't get into these storefronts because there's a 12-inch step out front and there's, you know, easily enough space for them to build a ramp, but they haven't done it. You know, even in a place like McDonald's downtown Banff, you know, a massive corporation hasn't put the money or the thought into putting a ramp into their storefront. So, you know, I don't visit those businesses, and that's the way that I, you know, kind of choose not to support them until they make things accessible.
On that topic of McDonald's and the ramp,
Right.
what's cool about that is I had an ignorance until this moment.
Right.
I would
right,
have never known that.
Right.
Right? So it's like you get to then educate people like myself and other
Of course.
people.
Of course. You know, people around me, like friends and family, they notice these things now. They notice a step into a storefront, or they notice stairs with no escalator or no elevator, and they realize now the difficulties that creates for someone who has accessibility challenges. And I'm not just talking about people in a wheelchair. It could be, you know, mothers with a stroller, you know, or people in a wheelchair, or people that are walking with a walker or a cane. So I think it's made me a bit more of an advocate for accessibility.
I love that.
Yeah, you know, we own a commercial property in town called Banff Beaver Cabins, and we planned on redeveloping the property before my accident. And the day after I was hurt, so the Saturday morning, my cousin says, oh, the designer came up with his plans and here they are. So this is one day after my massive surgery. I'm sitting there in the ICU looking at these plans, and I take them and I tear them all up because there's nothing but stairs everywhere. And I said, this simply isn't going to work. So from that very moment, 12 hours after the accident, you realize the need for accessible places. And, you know, it put us down the path of trying to redevelop the property. We're still trying to, you know, figure out ways that we can make this place accessible for people. You know, I see need for sit ski camps coming to Banff, right? And having a place where the whole team can stay. You know, people talk about, well, why don't you just make one of the cabins accessible? And I said, no, I want to make them all accessible. Why do we have to stoop to the lowest common denominator there to solve a problem? You know, I think we can go beyond that, right? You know, we can make the entire property accessible, and going forward with the town here, when people do redevelopment downtown, why is there not an elevator? Why is there not ramps put in? We're seeing these new buildings come up and they're not accessible. I don't know if that's in the building code to force them to do this.
I guess it's just ignorance.
It's that, and it's just, they just don't realize, they're just not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because they're not in a wheelchair, they're not in a walker, they're not pushing a stroller. They haven't thought about it, right?
What I loved about what you just said about the beaver cabins being all wheelchair accessible is there is a young person that maybe has not had their spinal cord injury yet,
Right.
but there's people that are going to come and be touched by you
Right.
and what you've done.
Right.
And that's what's so magical about something that is so terrible.
Right. Absolutely.
What is the silver lining for you? Like, what brings you joy?
Well, that's a pretty easy one. I mean, the kids, my wife, my family, they bring me joy every day. I think if I was in this journey alone, without a strong support network, I don't think I could have done it. There's no question about it. I wouldn't have made it. I would not be here today if I didn't have the support that I received from everybody around me.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I mean, the house that we're sitting in right now was renovated by the fire department and people that helped out from EMS and the hospital and other folks that joined in. And they took down this massive chimney in my house. I think it was 50,000 kilograms of stone, starting at 8 a.m. and by 2 p.m. the hole in the ground was covered up and closed in, and they hauled it all the way. This is the work of 20 people getting together as a team to help out.
And I
Incredible.
mean, JP, it's because you're incredible.
Well,
It is though. It takes a village, yes.
It does.
But that is because of all the groundwork you laid in your work and the way that you are with all of us.
Well, I'm a compassionate person. I think that if someone's in need, we should step up and help out, without a doubt. And I've been in situations, again, where I'm downtown Banff and in half a foot of snow, and I'm stuck in the middle of an intersection, trying to get by, and there I see, a girl that I know, she comes up and she starts to push me, and then somebody else comes from the front and grabs on the front of my wheelchair and starts to pull me. So, people, they see the need and they step up, and that's part of the silver lining in this as well, is that the world, 99% of the people in the world are good people, is what I found. To leave somebody there in the middle of the road and strand them, could you imagine that?
No.
If people have that kind of indifference in them? Right?
And the crazy thing is, if I come and help you, that also uplifts my spirits.
Of course.
Because it's in our nature to want to help.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, who is your biggest hero?
My biggest hero? Oh, jeez. I probably said this before, but it's the fellow that created that e-bike that I'm on. His name is Christian Bagg. He was hurt back in the late 90s in a snowboard competition, and he became a paraplegic as well. And since then, he's endeavored to get people back on the mountain on this 3-wheeled mountain bike that he's created. And, his dedication and passion for this project has led to, I'd say, we're getting close to hundreds of people now having accessibility and getting back on the mountain and getting back onto trails that they would have never been able to access without this bike.
And that's part of their spirit, right? That's part of what drives you, makes your heart want to beat.
Absolutely.
These mountains.
I see a lot of people, and I follow a lot of people on social media, and they're doing amazing things. And I still haven't quite found my place of what I want to do to help out this community. Going forward with this injury, it's still a bit of a question mark in my mind, because there's some big shoes to fill out there when I look at some of the other projects that people have done.
It sounds to me like you do know what you're going to do.
Eventually, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but I love that you're even there, right? Not
Right.
even 3 years after an accident, and you're already like, how am I going to help this industry?
Right. I've been thinking about it for a couple of years now, and there's a couple ideas floating around, but we'll talk about those another time.
Yeah, oh my God, I'm your girl, I'd love to.
Sounds good.
What about, is there a network of people in similar situations that you can lean into?
Yeah, absolutely. So, social media it's connected me to wheelchair users from all around the world. I'm inspired by what some of these people are doing and how fast they've recovered, and some of the tricks and stunts they're doing on wheelchairs. There's a fellow that goes in the skateboard park and he does backflips on his wheelchair and lands them. He's incredible. Yeah, 500,000 people follow him on social media because he's doing such amazing things. Another gentleman that I saw the other day, he's riding on a skateboard with his wheelchair. Yeah, who would have thought?
Yeah, and how?
Well, he adapted it. He put little brackets in there, and he pops up onto the skateboard, and off he goes. He balances on his big wheels, and he skateboards.
Just the human spirit.
It's incredible.
It is incredible.
And we were talking the other day about another girl that I follow that is also paraplegic, and she does yoga, but she braces her legs with a big dowel so that she can lift herself up, because if the legs aren't secured, they just flop around, right? So she's done some amazing things.
Yeah, it goes to show.
Yoga-wise, it's incredible. Yeah. Yeah,
it was wild. JP and I were doing some yoga,
yeah.
and it was just so crazy because, well, we won't talk about that. And his body, because his legs aren't functioning, he literally has to use his entire core to keep him up. So it was an absolute wild experience to bend your leg in and know that if I'm pushing you off center, you'll fall.
I'll fall over.
Yeah, that was really fascinating.
It is, yeah. I mean, it teaches people, your limitations and your ability to accomplish amazing things.
Yeah.
The first time I sat up in the hospital, they held on to me, and when they let go, I felt like a jack in the box. My body was just flopping around like that, and I fell over and I became sick. I got nauseous. I was like I was in an airplane that was going under massive turbulence. It was wild. Yeah.
You've learned a lot in this short life.
Come a long ways.
Yeah, and you're still going.
Still more to go.
You're going to do amazing things.
I hope.
I had another question. What would you like people to know about what it's like to be in a wheelchair? What do you think's misconception or...
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that, the physical disability is the biggest challenge. And in a lot of people, that's not the biggest challenge. It's the mental side of things. It's overcoming that nerve pain that so many people experience, or muscle spasms that are uncontrollable, or relearning how to go to the bathroom. We don't use the toilet the same way anymore, right? It's quite different. You have to catheterize yourself to go pee. Or in my case, I can actually bear down because I have my core muscles still, so I can engage my core and put pressure onto my bladder to go to the bathroom.
Wow.
Right? So that's a big change. People think, it's just the legs that aren't working, but the first thing that goes in any kind of spinal cord injury is that bowel and bladder function there.
Wow.
That's the first thing that goes, whether it's even a very low injury. That's the first thing that goes.
So is it based on timing then? Do you just figure out okay, I'm drinking some water, so I'll need to go to the bathroom?
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
It's a timing thing, and I get some physical cues still. If I've drank too much water, my bladder's full, my feet start to tingle. So I know my feet are tingling.
Whoa.
Yeah, I need to go to the bathroom. What a different sensation.
I bet you've become more sensitive to things that you would never notice before.
I think so.
Yeah. Maybe we all get a tingle, we just don't notice.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah.
It's relearning your body, and it's taken me all this time to kind of figure it out. And I'm still figuring things out with going to the bathroom and timing and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's going to be a lifelong, challenge to keep on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any books that you would recommend, or what are your favorite books?
I don't have time to read right now with 2 little kids. Yeah. I'm kind of big into economics. I read a lot of scholarly journals and stuff like that as opposed to books.
Okay.
So I can't necessarily recommend an inspiring book that's kind of kept me, uplifted and my spirits high. I kind of just rely on my own wisdom to get through life. So
you're doing such a good job.
I'm trying. Yeah.
And you have this new puppy that we see walking. What's your puppy's name?
Lucy. Yeah, we got Lucy back in the spring. She's a red golden retriever, and she was born in March of last year. So she's coming up to her 1-year mark now.
No way, so she kind of has the same birthday anniversary as you.
She does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me like there's a really sacred bond between the two of you that seems different with the other family members.
It is. You know, she likes to pull with anybody that walks her, but with me, she knows she can't pull. So she'll forage, but she won't pull me out of the chair. You know, not once has she pulled me hard enough that I've dismounted from my chair. And you know, I thought the stronger that she gets, the more of a risk there is of me kind of tipping forward or falling out when she pulls too hard. But she simply hasn't done it with me. So she knows that something is different about me for sure. Just the way that she nestles up against the side of my wheelchair, she knows that something is different. They've got that intuition in them. And you know, I've been going through these health episodes for the past, 18 months now, where they're unexplained, and I'll explain some of the symptoms. You know, I'll start to shake quite badly, and my heart rate will race, and then I'll throw a really bad fever, and that'll last for about a day. And then the next day, I'm terribly nauseous, and that lasts for a couple of days. And that's been happening every 4 or 5 weeks since August of 2019. And we're kind of baffled as to what it is. We don't fully have answers for it. Right now, I'm at the stage where I've been told just to manage it,
Oof.
and I'm not convinced that that's the final answer. I think there's an explanation. I'm investigating, you know, traditional Chinese medicine now.
Nice.
But try that out.
And Lucy, does she pick up on?
Oh, she knows. You know, when I'm down and out, she's next to my bed, lying on the floor.
Huh.
So she's there for me.
Oh.
Yeah, and of course my family's there for me as well.
Yeah.
We're lucky this winter. We have Katrin's stepdad here with us for 3 months. His name's Helmut, and he's been, you know, helping out with shoveling the driveway, cooking dinners, fixing every little problem in our house, taking Evan to school, picking him up, you know, doing groceries. He's been a huge help for us this winter. So.
Yeah, and again, he probably is so excited to be able to be of help.
Oh, he is. Yeah, I think he feels the feeling that you mentioned earlier, where you help somebody, you just get that fulfilling sensation from it. I think he's quite happy doing that. So.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, JP, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I had to fight to do this, and I'm so grateful.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, you were an absolute inspiration, and I admire you in so many ways. So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.